Welcome to the channel. On this episode, I want to talk a little bit about solo travel and some of the items I keep with me when I'm going out on my own. I enjoy trail running, hiking, off-roading, and oftentimes I'm doing these things solo. I really do enjoy getting out there by myself. There's a clarity that you can reach when you're out in nature, away from everybody and everything. That's hard to get when you're with a group. I find it really revitalizing, and I really do enjoy getting out there on a good solo adventure. But traveling solo does come with its own set of challenges, the top of the list being personal safety. Because since we're out there by ourselves, we don't have a buddy to look after us. If we injure ourselves, we don't have anybody to go run back for assistance. So that means that we have to be extra prepared. When I was putting my kit together, I wanted items that were small, preferably inexpensive, that I could fit in my backpack, along with my drone, camera equipment, and other miscellaneous items. Everyone's list might be a little different, but depending on what your particular needs are, where you're at, what the terrain is like, what the weather's like, how long you're going to be out. But these are the items I found to be helpful for my needs, and maybe they'll be able to help you out a little too. And of course, I know the responsible thing is to travel with a buddy. But if you're like me and enjoy a good solo adventure, here are the 10 items I keep with me. The first item I have is a navigation app. Now, I use Gaia, and this happens even before I leave for my trip. Before I go, I download the map of the general area I'm going to be in, and I map out my route, and my plan is to stick to that route. So for example, when I took the trip to Reflection Canyon, I downloaded the map of the Escalante area and picked the route I was going to take to Reflection Canyon. Once I had that route in there and saved, in Gaia you have the ability to share that route. I shared it with somebody and told them about approximately what time I thought I would be back. So that way, if they didn't hear from me, they'd have a general idea of where I was and what route I was planning on taking. So if something happens, they have a better chance of finding me quickly. The next thing I have is a first aid kit, so that way I can take care of minor bumps and bruises and scrapes, clean things up and stop some minor bleeding. I like this one because it's so small. I found it on Amazon. Just about everything I have here I found on Amazon. I'll include the link in the description. I like this one because it's small and it had a good variety of items in it. I added a few items to it to kind of round it out based on my needs and experience. I'll probably do a separate video on the first aid kit because that I think might be helpful. The next item I always have attached to the first aid kit, a flashlight. I always try to get back to the trailhead before the sun goes down, but who knows what could happen. But it's definitely common for me to start my hikes before the sun comes up, so a light is a must. So in addition to a hand light, I always keep a headlamp also. It's good to have a second backup when it comes to light. So I found both of these to be useful. One ability that you need to have when you're traveling solo and say you become hurt is the ability to signal for help. One of the simple things I keep to be able to signal for help is a whistle. It's going to stand out as not being a noise that's familiar in nature. Hopefully going to travel a long distance. Because I couldn't imagine anything more frustrating than being hurt and needing help and hearing somebody off in the distance, but them not being able to hear me, or for me not being able to get their attention. So the whistle, something nice and small, can get their attention. Along that same line of being able to signal, we'll come back to the headlamp. This particular headlamp has a setting for strobe. So a strobe in the middle of a dark forest is going to stand out as just another way of getting someone's attention. Another interesting thing that I found that I got for my last trip is that is a visual signal, is a smoke flare. And this, you ignite it and it sends a bright yellow, a bright orange um, smoke into the air so that you can be seen by search and rescue. The important thing to remember is that it's a flare, so there's risks that come along with it. I'll just read right off of the item. It says, for emergency use only, caution, extremely flammable, produces hot flame, keep out of the reach of children. So obviously you don't want to point it at yourself. You don't want to point it at a tree or dry shrubs. Preferably, maybe you're in a rocky area, someplace that if you ignite it, you're not going to set the forest on fire and create a whole new set of problems for yourself. Something I thought would be, that I just recently picked up, and I thought, it would be something handy to have. So along with being able to signal audibly or visually, I thought, well, if I need to be able to hold tight for, practically 24 hours, most likely, because you figure that if you go out on your hike that evening, the person who you communicated where you went hasn't heard from you, they're becoming concerned, and maybe they're contacting the authorities. The soonest anybody's going to start looking for you is that very next day, most likely. So that means that you have to be able to make it at least through one night. Just try to stay dry and warm and hydrated. So along those lines, something as simple as this, a rain poncho, so that if it does start raining in the day or through the night, this can help try to keep it dry. Very small, fits easily in the backpack. And along with that, I found here is an emergency sleeping bag, also very small. It's made out of that material that reflects your body heat back in on you. So that way, even though it's not thick, it's able to keep some heat in there. Because even if you're hiking during the summer, it gets cold up in the mountains. And I always try to keep water with me. But if for some reason I've run low because I'm out there longer than I was expecting to be, or it's especially hot, you need some way to hydrate. One thing about a lot of the trails up in the mountains here, usually they follow some kind of creek or stream, and oftentimes they'll maybe end up at a lake, some high elevation lake. So there's, even though Colorado's a dry place, there's a chance that you might have some fresh water if you run out of your own. So here I got a Lifestraw. So what it allows you to do is to drink out of freshwater sources and not have to worry about cleaning the water, because it's essentially a filter that you're drinking through. So I keep that, so just in case, if I can get to a place where there is some water, I can drink it without worrying about getting sick. Now, the next few items that I have to deal with potential aggressive animals. And thankfully, I've never had any kind of close call with any kind of animal when I've been out. And as a matter of fact, I see more wild animals along the road than I see when I'm actually out hiking for whatever reason. But one item I keep with me is an air horn, very small but very loud. Hopefully, if I do see an animal and they're far enough away and they maybe get an eye on me, you can sound the air horn, and the sound might discourage them, maybe startle them enough to realize that they don't really want to mess with me. Also, what I keep with me is bear spray. Now, this bottle is a little bit bigger than I was hoping, but it still fits, halfway decent in the bag. So if the animal is not deterred by the air horn, or we startle each other and we're closer to each other than we ever wanted to be, maybe the bear spray will be enough to deter them. Now, the last item, this item is a bonus item. It's not one of the 10 that I just went over. But because it's not small and it's not inexpensive, but it does provide a level of security that I really do like having, and it is a satellite phone. Now, there are a lot of different options when it comes to communication and GPS devices, but I decided to go with the Sat phone because it provides the ability to make a voice call, communicate via text. You can share your location, and having the flexibility to do all three of those things, I really like, as opposed to only being able to share my location or only being able to communicate via text. And it has a couple of extra features that I found that are really really useful. One of them being the button here there's a button here at the top that's an assist button. Assign a contact to that button, and if you hit that, it is automatically either going to call them or it will automatically going to send them your GPS coordinates via text message or email. So whoever your contact is back at home, something happens, you push the assist button, it's going to send a text message or email with your coordinates, and that person knows that something is wrong, and they can contact the authorities and tell them where you are. Now, this button is not like a 911 button. It has to be a different contact. It's not for 911. Mine is actually assigned to a search and rescue coordination service, and this is something I didn't realize existed until I started doing my research. And I believe the company is called Geos. And for $30 a year, you get $100,000 in insurance to cover the cost of your rescue. And they also provide coordination services. So I've never had to do it, thankfully, but theoretically, I push the button, it goes to a search and rescue coordinator, and they know where I am. And it may be that I'm not in the condition to be able to communicate effectively. They will contact the proper authorities, let them know where I am, and coordinate my rescue. It also will share your location. You can say for every 15 minutes, I wanted to send my GPS coordinates to whoever I list as the recipient. So you're out on your venture. Maybe you have family or at home where they're worried about you. Every 15 minutes, it sends them an email letting you know where you are, so they can see that you're following your path and everything appears to be okay. And if for some reason you don't contact them at the predetermined time, they'll know where you're at and be able to get help to you. The Sat phone, not cheap, but does provide a level of security that I found was worth it. You can buy a monthly plan, but I'm not some world traveling adventurer. I just buy a prepaid card that has a certain amount of minutes on it, so that way it is there when I need it during the season when I'm typically out. So I thought this was very, very useful for me, and in my opinion, worth the money. So that's it for the basic items that I keep with me. Of course, that may change a little bit depending on how long I'm going for, where I'm going. But these are the base items that I keep with me when I go out on my own.